President Bush and Bill Clinton trade punches as the political campaign heats up. And a new showdown looms in Iraq over the Allies' plan for a no-fly zone. This is the CBS Evening News. And this is Bob Schieffer reporting. Good evening. Well, the race is on, and if this first part of it is any indication, it's going to be a wild one. Heading through the Midwest today, Bill Clinton accused the president of neglecting the economy to the extent that he's put the national security at risk, while the president, campaigning through the South, brushed off criticism that he's neglected domestic issues in favor of foreign policy by saying, quote, "I saw a chance to finish off imperial communism, and I took it." We start with the Republicans, as reported by Susan Spencer.
Mr. Bush took his message of tax cuts, family values, and patriotism back to Dixie today for an enthusiastic, if rain-drenched, rally near Atlanta.
If you want to see a rainbow, you got to take a little rain.
His warm-up act, Georgia Congressman Newt Gingrich, really warmed up, lumping the Democrats' values with those of Woody Allen.
Woody Allen is not having incest with his non-daughter, to whom he has been a non-father because they've had a non-family. Now, it's a weird situation.
Mr. Bush also talked of values, but was less strident and considerably less specific.
And it's a choice between different agendas, different directions for our great country, and it's a choice about the character of the man that you want to lead this nation for another 4 years.
But post-convention soundings in the South show, more to the point, it may be a question of the economy. A regional poll done this past week found 70% of Southern voters think Mr. Bush has mismanaged the economy, and the economy was their #1 concern. This poll also found the president trailing in the region by 12 points. But Republicans predict Clinton's draft record and the values issue will catch up with him in the South. At an afternoon rally in Birmingham, Mr. Bush pulled out another weapon, tie Clinton to the hated Congress.
And I call them the gridlock, Democratic, liberal-controlled Congress. And I don't believe the governor can stand up to them.
Analysts say it's probably a good idea for the Bush Quayle ticket to deal with the South early.
He comes out of his convention, and to keep that momentum going, he comes to his most friendly area, the South. That's smart. Now, if you see George Bush or Dan Quayle in the South the last week of this campaign, you're looking at two losers.
The Bush-Quayle campaign insists that won't happen, that in the end they will win the South. Whatever the outcome, their Southern opponents plan to make them spend a lot of time and money here trying. Susan Spencer, CBS News, Birmingham.
Vice President Quayle campaigned today in Huntington, Indiana, his boyhood home. This time he was able to joke about the ugly scene in Huntington when he kicked off his '88 campaign. As you'll recall, that's when townfolk booed reporters who were asking Quayle about charges he had joined the National Guard to avoid service in the Vietnam War. Democrat Bill Clinton and his running mate Al Gore boarded their campaign bus again today in Cleveland for a highway trip that winds up in Buffalo. Here's Richard Threlkeld with that.
On this trip, Clinton's trying to knit together the strands of what he hopes will be a winning coalition. Last night at a black church in Cleveland, and this morning among senior citizens. Clinton will need a big turnout among inner-city black voters in November.
Do you want 4 more years of Bush and Quayle?
To go along with the voters, the campaign courted the rest of today suburban whites, munching pierogies in Parma and shaming the Republicans in Houston for picking on Mrs. Clinton.
They spent the first 2 nights running against Hillary. If Bush wants to run against Hillary, he ought to file for First Lady instead of President.
Perhaps, but it's also evident Mrs. Clinton's a little too outspoken for some.
Well, I'm going to tell you, what's going to hit him as hard as his wife with her big mouth.
Clinton's trying to prevent the Republicans from getting a copyright on the so-called family values issue, which he says is just a smokescreen.
They talk about family values. How can you be for family values if you don't value families? It wasn't until we were to take them out of their jobs that they decided this family value issue was a problem.
Still, after listening to folks in this crowd, you wonder whether all this family values talk isn't going to do the candidates more harm than good.
Well, I think it's insulting that Republicans keep talking about family values like they coined the word and they started it.
Well, I think family values are important, but right now we are really faced with economic problems, and I'd like to see that as the #1 issue.
The Clinton caravan wound up the day at the Southern Park Mall in Youngstown, Ohio. If you're running for president and you're looking for votes in suburbia, this is the sort of place you go on a Saturday afternoon. Richard Threlkeld, CBS News, Youngstown, Ohio.
As for the impact of the Republican convention on the race, the CBS News New York Times poll taken over 5 days this week shows the president has moved into a virtual dead heat with Bill Clinton. A Los Angeles Times poll says the president is pulled to within 7 points, but a Newsweek poll conducted yesterday shows the president still trailing by 14 points. Overseas, Iraqi officials appear ready now to force UN workers and guards to leave the country. And today they denounced Allied intentions to bar Iraqi warplanes from southern Iraq. We have more on this from Jim Stewart at the Pentagon.
UN officials have been packing up in Baghdad after failing to reach a new agreement over the rights of international relief workers in Iraq. Their departure comes even as Saddam Hussein's government today shouted its defiance at Allied plans to establish a no-fly zone over southern Iraq. The U.S. and its allies are expected to announce early next week they will shoot down any Iraqi aircraft flying south of the 32nd parallel, where Shiite rebels are active against Saddam's government. The aircraft carrier Independence ends a port call at Abu Dhabi Monday and steams into the central Persian Gulf to help enforce the ban.
There's been an escalation of Iraqi activity in southern Iraq over the past month, probably peaking with the use, for the first time since the war, by Iraq of combat aircraft, bombing Shia populations in the south.
Operating from an airbase that was virtually destroyed by Allied bombs in the Gulf War and has now been rebuilt, Iraqi attack planes and helicopters have been averaging 30 flights a day. Shiite rebels say the air cover has allowed reinforced Iraqi army units in the area to turn up the pressure.
The kind of thing that ground forces are doing is more directed toward the Shia population as a whole in terms of entire villages being targets, rather than just these kind of scattered counterinsurgency operations that we saw for so many months after the war ended.
Despite the rhetoric in Baghdad today, the Iraqi Air Force was severely hammered during the war and is not expected to challenge next week's flight ban. About 100 Allied flights, mostly U.S., will enforce the no-fly zone, which effectively cuts Saddam's control over Iraqi airspace in half. Jim Stewart, CBS News, the Pentagon.
In Sarajevo, at least 30 people now have been killed in the worst fighting in a month. Mortar shells hit headquarters of the UN peacekeeping force in Bosnia. 2 British and 2 French soldiers were wounded by shellfire. Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, Hurricane Andrew, the season's first, is moving toward the Florida coast. And daycare for dogs, urban canines, and a map of love. Portions of Florida are under a hurricane watch tonight as Andrew, the first hurricane of the season, is churning up the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Residents along the Florida coast were stocking up on supplies, topping off gas tanks. The storm, packing winds up to 95 miles an hour, is more than 600 miles off the Florida coast now and moving westward. Forecasters say that Andrew could hit the Bahamas Sunday night, reach Florida sometime Monday. Fire officials in California now believe the 1992 brush fire season will be the worst ever. That assessment comes as a fierce wildfire is tearing through the Shasta National Forest tonight. We get more on that from Bill Lagatuda.
Highway 299 leads straight into California's latest inferno, a monster of a fire that continues to eat its way through the woods north of Redding, devouring whole 60-foot ponderosa pines in seconds.
Trees or something just explode.
The flames surrounded the tiny village of Round Mountain and swallowed it whole.
We just got everything we could get and got in the car. This is terrible.
More than 7,000 people have been evacuated. Some barely made it. 35,000 acres have been lost so far. The fire is still out of control. This is the season of hot, dry weather and high shifting winds that California lives with each summer. Fire crews are always spread thin, but it's worse this year. Some cities won't send in backup teams because the state has no budget and is still paying with IOUs.
I'm staying here. I'm going to make sure if this place goes, I'm going with it.
So some people in the mountain towns are making their own fight of it using garden hoses. Some are losing. Tonight, the hungry fire is advancing north. Bill Lagatuda, CBS News, Los Angeles.
European exchange markets are closed today, so the U.S. dollar can't fall anymore this weekend. It dropped yesterday to an all-time low against the German mark, continuing a long decline that is turning the tourist business upside down. Juan Vasquez now with that.
Shirley Coleman of Great Britain remembers when you had to be wealthy to visit the United States. Yet today, here she is on the beach in Florida.
Even a few years ago, I wouldn't have thought about coming here. It was only last year we looked into the prices and realised that it wasn't expensive. And in fact, the dollar wasn't as good as what it is this year.
Whether they're marveling at the monuments,
Drop it! Now!
recalling the days when the West was wild, or catching the magic in the Magic Kingdom, tourists from all over the world agree an American vacation is a bargain.
The prices now are very cheap. The dollar rate for us is very, very good. And yeah, it's cheaper than Austria now.
The weather is better here than in Montreal.
A good trip for a cheap trip.
At Disney resorts in Florida, nearly 1 out of every 4 visitors comes from another country. Foreign tourists spent $64 billion in the United States last year, and they're expected to spend even more this year. With Japanese leading the way, foreign visitors buy more and stay longer. Their spending has helped to create nearly 900,000 American jobs.
I think it has had a very big effect as we've been trying to come out of a recession. I mean, this has really been one of those hidden bright spots.
For Americans who want to travel abroad and can't afford it, it's not so bright.
What we are gaining in inbound tourism is in very, very large measure being offset by tremendous losses in outbound tourism. It's getting to the point where Americans really cannot afford to leave the country anymore.
But Shirley Coleman of Great Britain hopes the dollar stays in her favor so that the golden tan she's getting in Florida this year can be improved when she visits the golden state of California next year. Juan Vasquez, CBS News, Cocoa Beach, Florida.
And we have 2 promising reports tonight from the world of medicine. A study published in the British journal Lancet says that American researchers have developed the first test for the early detection of Alzheimer's disease. And scientists in California say that they have developed a simple blood test that detects melanoma and other deadly cancers while they're still curable. Crime, one of Campaign 88's favorite topics, has gotten virtually no attention this time around, and that is tonight's Washington Notebook. Crime, has it become so common we no longer notice?
There just seem to be more and more people who are willing to combat the police. You know, you pull up on a call and all of a sudden everybody's ready to fight.
Officer Jeff Park patrols the streets of suburban Rockville, a place of neatly trimmed yards and small businesses, and lately, a place where apartment managers are finding crack cocaine.
Most of the drugs are brought in here from outside and not so much the residents.
People here used to think serious crime was what happened 15 miles down the road in the nation's capital, where each day young, mostly black men are killed in street shootings. But 2 weeks ago, 15-year-old Alain Colasso was gunned down while mowing his front yard by an assailant who told police he just had an urge to. The shooting stunned the community.
Things are much worse today than they were 20 years ago. What are we going to do about it? And the answer has always been the short-term approach.
Usually, in an election year, voters are bombarded with promises from the candidates about what they will do to make the streets safe. 4 years ago, George Bush bashed Michael Dukakis for his prison furlough program in the notorious Willie Horton ad. But this year, except for posing for pictures with policemen, there has been little offered in the way of solutions.
Clinton and Congress don't want to close legal loopholes and keep criminals behind bars, but I will.
Locking up criminals was the only mention the president made of crime in his acceptance speech Thursday night. Since Mr. Bush took office, violent crime has jumped nearly 25%. The focus of his Justice Department has been to target criminals with guns and lock them up.
Most of the crime, violent crime in this country, is committed by a hardcore group of recidivist offenders who constantly pass through the revolving door of justice.
The Justice Department points with satisfaction to 6,400 criminals charged last year with weapons violations and average sentences of 18 years without parole. But cops on the beat say that's only a partial solution.
You lock them up, you put them away, they get out in 6 months to a year.
Instead, say community residents, what is important is that the neighborhood band together to stop it.
We just said we was not going to have it. We was going to let these streets be safe for our children.
And that is what many crime experts wish the politicians would focus on this year. Not just promise to punish the criminals, but work with the communities to stop crime before it is committed.
And that's what's missing in large parts of the country. There is no sense of the community, and everybody is out for himself. And we really have to change that.
That kind of change, though, does not come quickly, and in the meantime, crime just keeps getting worse. Tyler is a little town out in East Texas, and normally they don't make much news that you hear about on national broadcasts, but the city these days is divided over charges of racism and police brutality, and those tensions came to a head today. Scott Pelley has our report.
In the East Texas town of Tyler today, there was a Ku Klux Klan rally downtown and a massive gathering of the NAACP nearby. The Black Civil Rights Organization called its meeting to protest a series of local shootings of black citizens by police. Some residents believe the shootings were unjustified and poorly investigated.
Certainly the worst of them was the shooting of Annie Ray Dixon. Police, acting on a tip that turned out to be wrong, conducted a drug raid on Mrs. Dixon's house and shot the 84-year-old woman to death. The police said it was an accident, and an inquest later found that they were not liable.
The case has energized the civil rights movement in this town like never before.
The civil rights movement for the most part of the 60s that went through the other part of the South bypassed Texas. Now Texas is being forced to deal with some racism in every area, business, industry, retail, and when you really talk about it, that's the purpose of this rally.
The rally was the biggest in a series of meetings held in Tyler to begin to address the problems that deeply trouble this community.
We're trying, first of all, to get people talking, and our hope is that we can, promote dialogue, promote an understanding so that things like LA don't happen in Tyler, Texas.
Ironically, it is the Klan rally itself that is giving many in Tyler hope. The Klansmen were all from out of town and drew few supporters. Many believe it was a sideshow that will actually help promote the dialogue which has been so long delayed. Scott Pelley, CBS News, Tyler, Texas.
If one theme dominated the Republican convention in Houston, it was the basket of issues called family values. Well, tonight, that is the theme of Bruce Morton's commentary.
The Republicans kept telling us this week they were for family values. But what does saying you're for family values mean? Voters are confused. In our most recent poll, 21% thought when candidates said that they were pointing with pride to their own family lives. But 34% thought they meant support for government policies which would help families. And 30% thought it meant criticizing non-traditional lifestyles.
Well, let's say family values are what you grew up with.
Waste not, want not. I grew up with that. My parents didn't own a house or a car, but they didn't owe any money either. Thrift, keeping out of debt, was a Morton family value. But given the deficit, it's hard to see how either the president or the Congress can run on that family value. A man's word is his bond. I grew up with that one, too. Promises were made to be kept. Honesty mattered. President Bush broke his most famous promise, the one about not raising taxes. His advisors said voters didn't expect campaign promises to be kept, and the president agreed. Do unto others. That implies tolerance of differences, being gentle to one another. We argued about that at home. Republicans argued this week. Barbara Bush was welcoming, but homosexuals, to mention just one group, were clearly not welcome in Pat Buchanan's Republican Party. Marilyn Quayle seemed not to welcome working mothers, feminists, or people who had opposed the Vietnam War.
We're all for family values, of course. We just don't agree on what they mean. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
The American relief operation for the famine in Somalia is getting into high gear. U.S. cargo planes are unloading food at an airfield in northern Kenya to be taken across the border by truck. Flights into Somalia itself are expected to start sometime next week. Finally tonight, if you love dogs and have some doubts about the overall sanity of the human race, you're going to love our next report. We call it simply Daycare for Doggies. I'm serious. Here is Jacqueline Adams with our report.
Lucy, the Labrador Retriever, used to lead a typical dog's life.
Well, when Lucy was a puppy, they didn't really take her out too much because both of her parents are doctors.
Millie, the boxer, felt lonely and ignored.
Her mom just had a baby, and they don't live near a park.
Lily, the bulldog, retaliated repeatedly on the rug, taking out her boredom and frustration on her busy lawyer owners.
She was like a flying meatloaf when we got home. It was all over the place.
The solution for all these New York dogs? Daycare.
They have a job, only it's all play and good times.
For much of the day, the dogs are outdoors, exercising, playing, even going to school.
Basic obedience: sits, stands, down, stays, comes. You know, everything you need to have a dog that's pretty well trained.
Even when they're indoors, every minute of their 12-hour day is supervised by the professionals at the Vancouver Pet Service.
You just can't put a bunch of dogs in a room and leave them there and call it daycare.
It costs as much as human daycare, up to $30 a day for door-to-door service. But director Pat McGregor doesn't see it as an extravagance. It's just giving a pet the life it should lead, she thinks, whether one lives in Manhattan or in Omaha.
Dogs are pack animals. They need to be with an owner or a group of dogs playing and running and having a good time. Opening a backyard and leaving a dog in a backyard is not much life either.
The owners all agree.
We tell her we're going to, see her friends, and she gets very excited.
Her getting to go to daycare is spoiled by most people's standards of care for their dog. But I feel it's the life she should have if I'm going to own her.
We'll take Lucy home first, and then we'll take Lily.
At the end of every busy day,
now they're going to go home, go upstairs, hang out, have dinner, and be ready to be picked up again tomorrow.
Ah, dog heaven. Jacqueline Adams, CBS News, New York.
That's the news. We'll see you again tomorrow on Face the Nation, where we'll get the view of the Republican convention from Democratic Governor Mario Cuomo. Then Edie Magnus will be here tomorrow night, sitting in for Connie Chung. I'm Bob Schieffer. Good night.
Experience CBS News.
On a course designed by Nicholas, a superstar-studded field will compete in one of golf's most unique and thrilling events, the International, continuing tomorrow.
This is CBS.